Good afternoon and welcome to the Triad Health Center virtual event. We're going to give it a couple of minutes for folks to join us, so just bear with us for a moment. I see some folks are joining. We're just going to give it another minute for people to hop on, and we'll get started. I see some more folks joining. Again, just give us a couple of minutes for folks to hop on, and we will be getting started promptly at 12 o'clock. I'm going to give it just a couple more seconds. I'm still seeing people pop on. All right, I think it is 12 o'clock now, so we will get started. Annie, can we record the session? All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amber Van Niekerk, and I am from our marketing team, and welcome to our first Triad Health Center virtual lunch of 2021. We're super excited to have you join us. I am joined today by Dr. Gina Glass, the physician at the Triad Health Center, and Dr. Glass is going to be talking to us today about eating better to achieve your health goals, which is something that I know that we're all excited in learning more about. Before I turn it over to Dr. Glass, I just want to remind folks, if you have questions, Dr. Glass is available to answer them at the end. Submit them in the Q&A throughout as your questions come up, and we will be covering them at the end. And one final reminder is we are excited that we're launching this virtual event series monthly right now. So today's event is talking about, healthy eating, and our next event is on February 9th, and we're going to be talking about the COVID-19 vaccine. So you'll be hearing more about that shortly. So again, I want to welcome Dr. Glass for joining us and turn it over to you. So Dr. Glass, why don't you take it away and talk to us about healthy eating?
Thank you, Amber. Thanks everybody for joining us today. Hope everybody's having a happy new year so far. I know things are still a little crazy, but we're all looking forward to 2021, hopefully bringing some good changes. But I know that when a new year happens, we often, our efforts are rekindled, or our desires rekindled to want to make some changes, perhaps develop some new habits or improve upon some of our health habits. So we thought this topic may be a good thing to kick off our 2021 series, as Amber mentioned. So today I plan to review kind of strategies on how to set realistic weight loss goals, if that's something that you're interested in, and then how to create habits so that you can achieve those goals, but also really sustain them, even beyond the initial weight loss. At the end, I'm going to spend a couple minutes since we can't meet in person yet, I'm looking forward to when we can, but since we can't yet, I brought some ingredients to, do a little demo on how to create a healthy sandwich, some ideas that maybe, will be practical for you as well. So we're going to start off with a polling question just to sort of get things kicked off. So there's a question here, and then you should be getting a question through, I believe, Zoom as well that you can respond to. I think that just popped up. So please put your answer in. Give just a couple minutes for folks to do that. And once everybody's had a chance to answer, we'll see kind of where the audience is and go from there. So I believe we have Annie in the background kind of facilitating our slides and our questions. So hopefully she can see if people are answering. I actually can't see just yet, so I'll give it another minute and see what the result is. Okay, so it looks like we got some answers here. So it's kind of spread. We have some folks, a lot of folks who think that the goal should be to get to a normal weight or normal BMI. Sorry, my eyesight is not as good as it should be, probably. I'm trying to read the small print here. It looks like some people are looking at a 5 to 10% reduction from initial weight. I'm not sure that these answers came out exactly as I planned. One of them was supposed to be 5 to 10% reduction from initial weight. And it looks like, oh, I see, it's the number, I'm so sorry. And then a 15 to 20% reduction or, getting into below the obesity range. So we'll talk a little bit more about what is, a realistic goal in just a moment. So if we go to the next slide, we'll get into that. So setting realistic weight loss goals, I think, is important. So Annie just showed up the correct answer there was actually 5 to 10% weight loss from your initial weight. And that's really just, it's for a variety of reasons. And we'll talk about that in just a second, like I said. So let me back up a minute and give a little background as to why that is the best answer, per guidelines, not just my opinion, per guidelines for managing weight. And the reason is that, many of us are not born really to be, quote, a normal BMI. We know that about 50%, there's about a 50% influence of genetics in people's body size. And so, some people just aren't born to be thin, or have what's considered to be, quote, a normal BMI. BMI can be really helpful looking at that, especially trending it over time, but in of itself, it's not always the best indicator. We also know that as years go by, we all have a tendency to gain weight due to metabolic changes from aging. I don't mean to make it sound like we can't make an impact. We certainly can, and that's what we're going to focus on today: is how to pick lifestyle changes that will impact our weight, but even more importantly, impact our overall health. So we know that, as it mentions here, that a 5 to 10% reduction is the initial goal. And if we just go to the next slide, it's just a reminder that we're talking about the realistic weight goals. That the reason for that is what's been shown to really make a significant impact in decreasing our risk of health conditions that are related to being at an unhealthy weight. Things like diabetes, high blood pressure, sleep apnea, joint problems, all of these things can be greatly reduced by just what can be a relatively small amount of weight loss. And we also know, if you already have those conditions, that losing 5 to 10% of your initial weight will help tremendously in managing those conditions as well. So, often what's listed as an ideal weight, if you look at a chart for your gender and your age, and your height, is not necessarily what you're really going to be able to get to, nor are we going to be able to get to necessarily the weight that we were many, many years ago. So I think the first step is thinking, what's a realistic weight? So we talk about this 5 to 10% weight loss over a 6-month period. That'll often equate to about a pound a week. So people might be familiar with the concept of really shooting for like a pound a week or so. Other groups, also promote that, and the pound a week is about an average. In the beginning, you might lose, more per week, and towards the end of your 6 months, you may be plateauing and losing a little less, but about an average of a pound a week is what we're generally shooting for. You may know that 3,500 calories is what equals a pound. And so if you're just doing the math with calories, reducing about 500 calories a day is generally what we're shooting for to get a pound a week of weight loss. Now, there are some other variables, but that's a good way to start. So the other input is that we know that, here it's talking about how to choose your weight loss plan. We know that adding physical activity also helps with the metabolism. So I'll back up for a minute and say that, the first thing on here is to, whether to quote diet or not diet, the whole the whole thing about diets is that they're sometimes very restrictive and are actually eliminating particular food groups, and that can be hard to sustain. I'm not opposed to people trying a diet that really works with their health habits. If it's if the diet kind of makes sense and is well balanced and healthy, by all means, having a structured plan can be really helpful for people. But then you have to be able to sustain some of the changes you made. So things that are very restrictive for short-term weight loss, tend to result in people regaining that weight after they're done with the official diet time. So, a more kind of holistic approach would be just simply, looking at calories, cutting back on calories. Like we said, shooting for 500 calories, decreasing a day. And like I mentioned, adding physical activity, because we know that the effects of aging, of, slowing metabolism, can really be turned around a bit with adding physical activity. Part of the issue with aging is that we tend to be less active than we were when we were younger, and we tend to lose some muscle mass, and both of these things will decrease our metabolism. So I will say that, as I mentioned, cutting back 500 calories a day is what we're shooting for. Of course, that's easier said than done. Sometimes we need to really kind of track what our eating habits are, sometimes for several days, to get a sense of where's the opportunities to do that. That can be through doing like an app. There are a couple of apps that are free and really good, such as MyFitnessPal or Lose It. I'm not promoting any particular app, but those tend to be ones that people really have good results with. Certainly there are other apps, other online things, other tracking methods, but trying to figure out where those calories are. And we'll get into more specifics in a few minutes. And then, we talked about, again, a couple times, the physical activity, but that in of itself won't cause people usually to lose weight, but they really work hand in hand. If you're increasing your metabolism with activity and you're cutting back on calories, that's where the most benefit is. For physical activity, we're shooting for about 30 minutes a day of a moderate intensity activity. It doesn't have to be high impact, but if you do want to do high impact, even less is good, 15 minutes a day. And then also adding some strengthening activities about twice a week to really help maintain and build that muscle mass, as we talked about. So I always encourage people to start small and then build up to that. So let's go ahead and pause there to do another polling question, and then we'll talk about a little bit more specifics. So the question here is, all of the following have been shown to promote weight loss except. Don't you hate when people do questions like this? So now that I can understand how the poll looks, I see the choices you have here: switching from regular to diet soft drinks, or getting adequate sleep, stress management, and regular walking. So pick one of those that you think has not been shown to promote weight loss. I know we sold this event as being about eating healthier, but there's certainly other things that we want to talk about, that can help you succeed as well. Okay. Well, congratulations. It seems like the vast majority of you know that switching from regular to diet soft drinks is actually the correct answer here. That has not been shown, interestingly, to promote weight loss. So we're going to get into some specific things that you might consider doing, and how the whole soft drink thing can relate, kind of relate to all of it. So we'll go to the next slide for just a minute here. And I encourage people to, after you decide what your realistic weight loss goal is, and you decide kind of in concept how you want to go about it, if you want to do a more structured plan, or if you're going to try to track it yourself through an app or whatever, then we really get very specific about the goals that you want to set, particularly if you're tracking it completely on your own. Well, I shouldn't say completely on your own, because part of what I love to do is to partner with people, but I mean without a structured program. So thinking about the 2 or 3 things that you want to work on for a month is usually a good way to start, and getting very, very specific about what goal you want and making sure that's something that's really attainable for you. Then, of course, also figuring out a way to track your progress. Sometimes these apps can help, or just doing a log. And then periodically sort of reviewing your progress and deciding, if you weren't able to attain that as you thought you would, kind of what the barriers were, how you can overcome those barriers, and or if you need to actually modify, your goal, if it just was too far of a reach for you at this point. Then certainly after you've been able to succeed in at least one of your goals, then, that's been a habit for a month or so, then consider adding, something else. So I usually recommend that we think about having a goal, around the reducing calories, since we know that's really critical for weight loss. One of the ways of approaching that is certainly reducing specific foods or beverages that we know are higher calorie or have very low nutritional value. So the soft drink thing comes into this, that we often focus on caloric beverages because they tend not to add much to our nutrition and can really add up if it's something that we participate in often. So a natural thing to think would be maybe switch from a regular sweetened beverage to an artificially sweetened beverage. But as I mentioned, the research shows that this hasn't really been successful for people generally, especially as a long-term solution, that it may help you in the short term reduce those calories, but people tend to crave other sweets, other simple carbs, other high calorie foods when they drink artificially sweetened beverages. It sort of fools our brain into thinking we're going to get the sugar, and then we don't. And so your body seems to crave it more. And there's a lot of research into exactly the mechanisms for that, but we just know it's not a great solution. If you do it in the short term to kind of just get past that initial step of getting rid of some caloric beverages, I'm okay with that. But certainly be better to switch to something like, if you like the carbonation, maybe a sparkling water, flavored sparkling water, or something of that sort. So we focus on beverages. Of course, alcohol is another place that has a lot of calories, and so sometimes room for improvement for cutting things out. And tracking your intake over a few days can help you really figure out how many calories you're getting through that. And maybe other high calorie foods, such as things that are high in saturated fat, maybe when you do takeouts, whatever it is, trying to reduce those things. A second thing that is often really important is thinking about portion size. I know for a lot of people, this is not a rocket science necessarily, but being very purposeful of how you're going to go about doing that. Maybe your change is going to be that you always eat on a smaller plate so that it looks like more of a portion for you. A recommendation for a lot of people is also to just automatically portion yourself 20% less than you normally would of anything that you eat. And eat away from where the serving dishes are. Don't serve family style. Keep your food on your stovetop perhaps, and then bring a plate to the table. Waiting a while to see if you're really satisfied. After about 20 minutes is when your body will actually know if you've had enough to eat. So many of us kind of rush through the meal and don't really give it that time before we know if we want more. So 20% less, eating away from the serving dishes, and taking that 20 minutes to know if we really want seconds are important. Of course, filling up our plate with other healthier, low calorie, high volume and high nutrition foods, such as non-starchy vegetables, is also a strategy that can be really effective, to make your plate look full and to help you be more satisfied. So I already alluded to the physical activity and the goals for that, getting 30 minutes a day. Certainly I sometimes will say just start small. If you're not doing any physical activity, maybe you just want to make it 5 minutes a day to start with. That's a great goal if you're not currently doing anything. If you are exercising once a week, maybe increasing it to twice a week. You just want to make it attainable and very specific. The goals that I set out about the 30 minutes 5 times a week and 2 times a week of strengthening, that's the ultimate goal. We want to give ourselves small attainable goals, so that we see our progress until we get there. I had skipped over the managed snacking that's on this slide here. I did another session earlier. I don't know if any of you participated in it, specifically about healthy snacking. We actually recorded that as well, and that is on our website if you're interested in seeing that. But I'd be happy to answer questions or talk more about that as well, because snacking can certainly be a downfall for some people, and tracking your intake over a few days will give you some idea of where the best place for you to start. So those are, the calories and increasing your activity. But I did want to just touch on other things that have been associated with, helping people lose weight, or if you don't do them, preventing you from losing the weight or sabotaging your efforts. So it's not on this slide, but it was, I think, believe part of the polling question that stress we know does play a big role in weight. When people are more stressed, we know that the hormone cortisol is increased, and that can affect your metabolism, make it harder for you to lose weight, and make it more likely for you to gain weight. Plus, we probably all know when we're stressed, we sometimes will stress eat. We'll crave certain foods that are more comfort foods, maybe higher calorie foods. So, really thinking about stress management as a possible goal that you might set for yourself, even though that's not what people automatically think of with weight loss, might be a good first step for someone. Similarly, getting a good night's sleep is really important. We know that if people don't get enough sleep, then they can have a lot of trouble with losing weight because, again, your body, when you're tired, you don't have good impulse control. Actually, that sleep allows you to metabolize food better. When we get that sleep, there's lots of great things that are going on in our body. And then I wanted to, end with this part of it with scheduling time for meal planning. That's super important. We know that when we're busy and we just wait till last minute to find something to eat, that we're less likely to make healthy choices. If you have to go home and think about what you're going to prepare, and then even find the ingredients and actually prep the food and prepare it, we're less likely to go to all that effort. So I personally like once a week, setting a time aside to plan meals for the week, have the ingredients handy, you'd be able to have things to pack lunch. I know some of you are working remotely now, so that might not be an issue, but if you are working on site or when you do go back on site, packing lunch can be a really great goal to help you achieve weight loss or maintain weight loss. So, in talking about packing lunches, I thought it would be good to briefly spend a few minutes about how you can create a healthy sandwich. And there's a slide here that we stuck in here before that because we're going to, I think, cut off the slides to do the demo. That, of course, these are ways that you can reach out to us through the Spruce app or schedule an appointment. I do love to partner with people on a more individualized level, and I'll talk more about that at the end. So we're going to break the slides for just a minute to talk a little bit about creating a healthy sandwich. So the first step in creating a healthy sandwich is, choosing, obviously, the ingredients and having those handy for you. Really, the components of healthy sandwich are to have lots of things that are high in fiber, have good lean protein because you need the protein to fill you up. And, to have enough volume and texture that you really feel satisfied, with it. And we do need some fat, oftentimes some creaminess on our sandwich, but choosing fats that are healthier and have some, other nutritional value. So, I don't know if we'll have time to actually build the sandwich, but I'm going to show you the ingredients and then I'll build it myself for lunch. Sorry, I can't share it with you today. But, I picked out a couple of different breads. So I like mine toasted. This is a couple slices of a whole grain bread. 100% whole wheat or whole grain is really important. You may choose something more like a round here. There's some really nice whole grain rounds. If you love the thick hearty breads, then maybe doing one slice and really doing a half sandwich, but really filling it is important. So this really helps with the fiber. Then I do think about, well, what am I going to put on as a condiment? If you absolutely love mayonnaise, and that has to be part of your sandwich, you just want to make sure you're very sparing with it and consider using a low-fat mayonnaise. But some other options that you might consider, hummus is really great substitute. I just have 2 tablespoons of hummus here that, I like smearing on my sandwich for my condiment, and it adds protein, it adds fiber, and it gives us that same kind of moisture and creamy texture that we want. Avocado or guacamole can do very much the same thing. If you smash that on your sandwich, has great nutrition. It does have a little fat, but it's really healthy fat. If those of you participated in our snacking event know that I talked about both of these things as bring great snacks too. But that can add kind of in place of a condiment. Of course, mustard is still a great option. I love Dijon mustard. If you're watching your sodium for high blood pressure or other reasons, then you have to be careful of that. But as far as calories, it's super low in calories. calories and, basically kind of a free food in that regard. So I think about the condiments second. Protein, you have to have protein on your sandwich in order for it to satisfy you. So, you can do some low-fat deli meats such as turkey or chicken, and those can be really healthy, a few ounces of those. Some of the other foods like ham you can do once in a while, but you do have to be careful of some of those like preservatives if you're using that on a regular basis. I personally love cheese, so I have a reduced fat Swiss that I would use. Slicing up a hard-boiled egg is also great on a sandwich. Try to avoid doing like the salads, egg salad, chicken salad, because they tend to be really heavy in mayonnaise. Now, of course, if you make them yourself, you could use minimal mayonnaise or low-fat mayonnaise, or even substitute yogurt or avocado or something instead. But just slicing one hard-boiled egg along with the cheese or whatever else you put on there would be great. Now, the key that I think we all tend to skimp on a sandwich are the vegetables. You really should shoot for having 2 good portions of vegetables on your sandwich. That will add the volume, satisfy you, add nutrition. We're trying to get lots of vegetables throughout our day. So some of my favorites are, using like baby spinach that's already sort of pre-washed, and it's really easy to pack and bring. This is a pretty generous portion here, but you want it to be like kind of a Dagwood sandwich, so to speak, of the vegetables. So spinach, I sliced up some red bell pepper. That would be a good choice. If tomatoes are in season, they're wonderful. Right now, they're not so great, but I do have some here that are reasonably tasty. And then sliced cucumber. Again, the important thing is that you really put a generous sized portion of 2 vegetables along with your lean protein and your condiments and your 100% whole grain bread. So, I think having those ingredients handy, so you can either, just kind of pack up some containers and make your sandwich if you're at work, or if it's something that, is not going to get too soggy, you can certainly, do it ahead of time. So hopefully that gives you just a couple of tips that, might help you. And I'm certainly happy to answer some questions about that. So kind of in general about this whole talk, it's a quick overview, I get it, of, some tips for, how to set realistic weight loss goals, how to decide what exactly you're going to do to start to implement that. But it certainly would be much better if you're interested in pursuing this to do it on a more individualized basis. So that's where the slides earlier suggested, I'm happy to partner with anybody. I love talking about these kinds of things and working with people. So you could schedule a virtual or in-person appointment to go over your whole health history, as well as to, really try to think about what would be a realistic plan for you. And then I often do follow up with, intermittent spruce messages or virtual visits, just to kind of check in on your progress. Of course, with your permission, I don't want to be a nag, but I think people often find it's helpful to have somebody who's keeping them accountable and, helping them brainstorm if they're finding some barriers that they're trying to overcome. So I will stop there because I know we didn't have a lot of time for questions, but I'm available beyond 12:30 if you guys have time, whoever wants to ask questions, or you can reach out to me later. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Glass. And we do have a couple of questions, so I'm going to put them to you. So the first question is, if BMI is not the best healthy indicator, why do the insurance providers place so much importance on it for health incentive programs?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I look at BMI as being one of many, health indicators. So, we look at, BMI, we look at waist circumference, but, I think in of itself is just an isolated value. It's not super helpful for setting goals, I guess is really what I was trying to say. That, to say you need to get down to a normal BMI, if your BMI is well above that, that's just not realistic. And we know that it doesn't take that degree of weight loss in order to see benefits. So I can't control what the insurance companies incentivize. Certainly BMI, I kind of look at it as just one of many, many things to consider. So I don't know if that helps, but whoever is more interested in that, I'd be happy to talk offline too.
Great, thank you. And just a reminder, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A or the chat, and I'll share those with Dr. Glass. But another question that we have is, can fasting be part of a weight loss or a lifestyle change?
So intermittent fasting, if that's what you're referring to, has been shown to be successful for weight loss for people. I guess I always just say that there's not a one size fits all for everybody. If
Mhm.
that works for you, like if you're somebody that, say waiting until, the afternoon and then just eating for 8 hours, like that's going to help you sort of limit the snacking or, whatever. I think that can be a healthy plan. Some people are just starving by the end of that fasting period then, and then they kind of overdo it during the time that they're allowed to eat. So I don't think it works for everybody, but it certainly does work for some people, which is again why I try to say, I don't know if I was clear about it, that I'm not opposed to different diet plans. I just think you have to really customize it to what works for you, what's going to be sustainable. Because if you do the fasting plan for just a few months and then you go back to your regular eating before without making any other healthy changes, then you're probably just going to regain the weight that you did while you were doing the fasting program. I don't know
So
if
it
that
really needs to be an individualized approach.
really an individualized approach and something that's you can sustain at least part of what you've done to lose the weight in order to
Mhm.
maintain the weight, because I didn't really focus on this, but after the initial 6 month goal, the point then is to maintain it and really
Mhm.
the next 6 months to really just try to maintain that weight. And then if you want to set another goal for weight loss when that's really like just
Mhm.
ingrained in you, those habits, then you can certainly do that, but the maintaining can be the hardest part.
Mhm. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions come in yet. So again, just a reminder that, you can always reach out to Dr. Glass at the health center. So Dr. Glass, I'll turn it back over to you to just to wrap up the session.
Yeah, so I guess I thank everybody for participating. I know, like I said, it was a super quick run through on some different ideas, but just kind of wanted to give you some thought, some things to think about and contemplate. And if this is something that's of interest to you, please do reach out. Send me a spruce message, make an appointment, and I'd be happy to talk with you further about it or to try to customize, a plan that would help you succeed in whatever your goals are this year. So I look forward to meeting those of you I may not have already met, or seeing some of you who I have met again if this is something you want to revisit. Okay, have a great rest of your day.
Thanks everyone for joining us today. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.